For one of my 2 entries for the Plastic Posse Podcast M3 M4 group build, I built the M50 Super Sherman. This is an old Dragon kit which wasn't without its problems, but it went together okay. This was the first time that I'd used PE, also known as photo etch, on a kit, and it was an interesting experience. For the uninitiated, it's very thin metal that's used to replicate parts of whatever you're building that are too fine to be printed in plastic. Once I'd done that, my next step was painting the whole tank in black, as you can see in the upper picture, just as a base layer, and then in Israeli defense colors, because that's how the tank was originally painted when given to the South Lebanese Army. I then painted the tank in SLA Blue after having sprayed it with hairspray. I then chipped that away to show some of the original Israeli color underneath, and then I started to use the oils that you can see in the foreground. This is how the tank looked after oil paint rendering. In this shot you can see that I've started to use pigments on the bogies underneath just to show that it has been dirty, it's been in mud. These tanks were not very well looked after, and you can see they do look pretty beat up. That was par for the course. I did do careful checking of reference pictures, and it was actually quite hard to find a clean version of this tank. You can see here it's now got some stowage on the back from good old Value Gear, best stowage on the market. As I had finished all the airbrushing, it was now safe to add the .50 caliber to the turret. Now it's time to add some figures. And as per usual, I used insulation foam for the base, and I actually copied a commercially available building to make my own cheap version, again using foam, for a shop front behind the tank. And now, the finished diorama. The other figures that you can see are from Meng's Middle Eastern figure set. I tried to make the tank a little more lived in by putting a Coke can and a partly drunk soda pop bottle on the side, gave the tank commander a cigarette, and made them look just a little bit on the scruffy side. You can see here also I've given a water bottle to the boy, who's giving that to the guy with the Palestinian style scarf on. One final thing I still have to add is I have to put indentations on the ground behind the tank. I haven't done that as yet, and they do have to be there. You can't drive around in a 45-ton tank and leave no marks. All the signs that you can see, the ones on the shop, the street signs, the direction signs, are all stuff that I found on the internet that are pretty accurate for the area and for the time period. I just photocopied them, reduced them, and used them on my diorama. And here is the M50 in all its grubby glory. To make the desert floor, I actually used an old standby dried coffee grounds and just sprayed them in a desert brown color. The sidewalk is actually foam and the bollards are wood. They're just little dowels that I got from Michael's. Now, if the tank tracks actually look like metal, it's because they are. They're from our model from China. They're actually separate metal sections with locating pins, pretty easy to put together. So far, of all the times I have put tracks on tanks, these have been the easiest to use. Pretty simple, you can do a full set in probably half an hour. There are various points on the model where you can see by using water I have worn away that top color, the SLA, that South Lebanese Army blue, to reveal the color of the old Israeli tank underneath. At this point, I'd like to personally thank Steve from Value Gear for producing such excellent stowage. It's really good stuff and very varied, so for all your armor needs, he's the one to go to. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little video of my diorama for the Plastic Posse Podcast group build. The idea is that we produce as many different Shermans as we can, all different varieties, lots of different countries, for the Nationals being held in Omaha. I decided I would do something a little out of the ordinary, a little more exotic, which is why I didn't do an American, British or Canadian tank, and I did this South Lebanese Army Super Sherman. Hope you liked it.